Welcome in, Hawks fans. Your boy Bryce Lewis back at it again for another Believe in Hawks episode. And this is your pre-draft NBA show for Believe in Hawks. Obviously, the Hawks are going #1 tomorrow. And obviously, I had to come on here with another special guest, Marq Chaney. You may have seen him on Bleacher Report. He does content for the Hawks and Falcons on there. Plus, he has his own YouTube channel. You guys should also go check that out, where he actually does more in-depth things, breaking down the prospects that we're going to talk about today, and also potential breakout players for the Falcons as well. So, and more coming your way as too. So, appreciate you, Marq, for coming on, man. How are you?
I'm doing well, man. Appreciate you, Bryce, for having me, man. Definitely a huge fan of your work. So, hey, like I said, I'm just happy to be here, bro.
Hey, I'm glad you're here, man. I'm glad you're here, and glad you're here to talk about the big day that is coming at the time of this recording tomorrow. You know, in about 7:52 now, about 8 minutes, NBA draft will be starting on ABC primetime.
Yeah,
first year of a 2-night event for the league doing the draft. But the Hawks are going to be on the clock, and luckily for us, we know by at least 8:30. The draft will be over for us, unless they do something crazy. So they'll be over. We can go ahead and focus on whatever happens. We have 3 prospects who have been rumored to Atlanta. Certain guys have gotten more momentum one week, and then another guy gets more momentum another week, and everybody's just trying to figure out who is the right pick for the Hawks, because every player has their strengths and their weaknesses. And I just want to get into that today with you. And let's go ahead and start with the first prospect, the guy who I think a lot of people have #1, who actually talked today and made some interesting comments about the Hawks. You know, Alexander Sarr. He's a guy who played for Perth last year, and also overtime elite previously to that. A guy who, you know, he is what they consider the closest thing to a unicorn in this draft, is what I've heard. A guy 7'1", 7'2", can guard guards and wings. Versatile guy, something that versatility is one of the biggest things you can have in the league and everything. But he made some interesting comments saying that, listen, when they asked about what happened with the workout, he was just like, listen, I'm believing in my agent, I'm believing in my group. So that pretty much is directing it towards the agent, who is also Luka's agent. We know what happened with that. And basically the rumors that he wants to be in Washington, they're trying to get him to Washington. But he also did say, I will play for any team that drafts me. So I wanted to get your thoughts on those comments first before we get into the breakdown of the player.
Yeah, interesting comments, to combine it with the rumors, over the past couple of days. We were hearing that, that he hasn't worked with Atlanta. Atlanta hasn't seen him in the building. So people were like, Then this morning, Landry Fields came out and he confirmed it. Hey, Sarr declined the workout. And then to get the actual video from Sarr, hear out of his own mouth, it was just like crazy to witness, especially with his time here in Atlanta, like his connections to Atlanta. There's reports that he's actually in Atlanta now. So again, like when you look at just everything together, you combine it with the comments, man, it's interesting, but I think it makes sense. Like if I was Bill Duffy, if I'm his agent, I'm his team, I'm looking at the Hawks and I'm saying, okay, you got Clint Capella, you got Onyeka, you got Jalen Johnson. And when you look at our front court, it's a little crowded. We can't forget about Muhammad Guy. And I can see how he says, okay, Alex Sarr and his agent can look at the Hawks roster currently and say there's not a true role. There's not a true position for him immediately. Of course, a lot of people are like projecting Clint Capella getting traded and, like there's things that can't happen, don't get me wrong, but when you compare our roster and our situation to the Wizards, you see a clear opportunity for him to develop, for him to get his reps and his playing time. And I can see how his agency, his team, his family is saying, hey, we'll like going anywhere, but come on, Atlanta. Come on, Atlanta. Like, don't make this hard. So, like I said, just to see it all together is crazy, but I think it does make sense. I do think it makes sense.
Yeah, and I think some people are even questioning, why would they even make this statement for the draft? Obviously, especially from Fields' perspective, why would he just go ahead and admit that publicly? But then maybe he's just like, there's no point to lie. I mean, if he hasn't worked out and he's not working out for us, what am I supposed to say? Or wait until after the draft and say, yeah, he didn't work out for us. Well, people know he didn't work out for us. So might as well just say it now. And probably at this point you can't, because the draft is tomorrow, unless they do some quick workout in the morning, which probably isn't going to happen. So I think that's what's interesting about it. And I know that's caused some fans have shied away from Sarr now because of that. Like, why do we want a guy who doesn't want to be here? And the thing is that people are wondering, is it a matter of does he not want to be here, or is it his agency? And I think that's where I think a lot of people are like, because they'll watch other interviews with him and he'll make it seem like, oh yeah, I'm cool playing whatever. And then you're hearing that and like, oh well, I just want to be drafted. I just want to. It's like it feels like there's a influence that's affecting his comments, which obviously a lot of these young guys rely on their agents to guide them through this process. And so people wondering if that's what's going on right now with the Hawks. But in terms of the player, you've looked at him, you've taken a look at a guy. I mean, do you see the unicorn that people think he can become? I mean, we see these highlights, we see these flashes. It seems like at times he can make shots off the dribble, he can hit a three. Obviously he's really big, so maybe a guy could be an alley guy. And everything like that. But some of the concerns is, does he see himself as a center? There is that question that he may not even see himself as a center. His agency may not see himself as a center. They may want him to play the 4, which is one of the reasons why there's some pushback to the Hawks is Jalen Johnson's your 4, and you're not moving him probably. So, what is your evaluation of Sarr and just his outlook? And is he deserving to be considered the number 1 prospect in this entire NBA draft?
I mean, you touch on a lot of different things, all right? You say he can do this, he can do that. And I think Alex Sarr has the most potential, and he has shown that he has probably the most versatility in this class. So that's kind of where you hear the unicorn term, and I see it, but it's more of a projection. When I look at Alex Sarr, I actually watched a lot of the NBL last season, and I remember watching the game. I mean, it had to be a Perth Wildcat game, telling who they were playing. But Alex Sarr came off the bench. I didn't know who Alex Sarr was. And they're like, the projected number 1 pick in the draft. And keep in mind, this is months ago. I'm like, the guy coming off the bench is the projected number 1 in the Australian League? Like, it's like 4 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, am I dreaming? And again, to go from there to now, I still kind of feel the same way. Is this guy really – well, again, the highlights are there. Has he produced enough? Is there enough proof to justify that he is worth the number 1 pick? And I think, you watch the highlights, you get excited when the Hawks win that number 1 pick, and you say, okay, he's been the number 1 guy. But I think if you actually watched him, there's a fair argument that he is all projection. It's all projection. There's nothing. The only thing you can really confidently say is that he'll be able to handle the ball. Again, we see him moving, his feet. We see him guarding wings. But that's against Australian play. Well, not necessarily Australian players, but this is in the NBL, in the Australian League. We know how explosive our guards and our wings are in the NBA. So, again, I think he's an excellent talent. I do think he probably has the highest upside. Everyone's saying that. I think everyone's in agreement in there. But I will argue, and I've been arguing over the past month, that you said it best. He's probably a 4. He's probably better suited playing a power forward versus playing center. And I've been saying that he needs more time. And if you ask me, the Hawks are not in a position to get a player and to continue to develop them. So if the Wizards want to come up, okay, hey, he's worth the number 1 pick. But for the Hawks currently with the number 1 pick, Bryce, I genuinely, and I have been genuinely like this for over a month now, I just don't think he's the top guy. I don't.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, listen, I think that's what actually makes this draft so difficult, especially with the Hawks winning it, because they're not a team that just needs help everywhere. And so it's like, you just need to get the best player. They have some good players at obviously point guard, obviously at power forward. You have starter caliber guys at the other positions. So it's not like there's just this glaring need. You're just trying to upgrade something, which I think people look at the most obvious upgrade is the center position just because people want to move on from Clint Capella. But also, Hawks haven't had an elite rim protector since Clint Capella was an all-NBA defensive candidate back during the East Conference Finals run. So I think that's where I think the big thing is. I think that's the thing you said about projection. a lot of people project Sarr to be like this really good player. Like, I think people looked at what Kristaps Porzingis looked the first 2 games of the finals and said, why can't that be him? They're both skinny. They're both 7 foot. You know, the one thing that I said Boston was able to do in that series was that Kristaps was able to attack Luka and Kyrie and get back to his man because he's quick enough to do that. Where Sarr, you would expect to be the same, where if you know, obviously we're about to get into the next guys, you know, one of the guys coming up, like you were like worried about that. Like, oh, well, he's Rudy Gobert. He can't do that. And Luka and Kyrie kind of had their way with Rudy Gobert. So it's kind of an interesting situation to kind of know like which guy you prefer, which guy you think would be best in that role. So I think Sarr, to me, again, you're right. I think Washington may be ideal for him because he gets to just grow, try to get better. You know, we're not expecting anything crazy, not trying to win. Where the Hawks are in a different position. They are expected to try to be competitive, especially if you're keeping Trae Young on the roster because of the comments he's made in that regard. Mm-hmm. So then that transitions me into the next guy. Now, I will go into Donovan Clingan here, escaping with the centers, or as they call him, Kling Kong. He's a guy who I don't want to say he's a fast riser because people have mentioned him like, oh, he could be around that pick. Again, probably depended on who got the pick. Hawks have worked out, you know, Donovan. Quinn likes Donovan. Hurley said Quinn likes Donovan. There was a lot of momentum for Clingan for a few weeks. Like, oh, wait, is he going to be the pick? Now I'm hearing rumors that are like, he's in the running, but I don't know if the Hawks want to take him at 1. And so, but he's a guy who people have debated, you know, why would we want to take a bigger Clint Capella or a Rudy Gobert or whatever? You've looked at Clingan. What can you tell me about him? I mean, listen, championship pedigree, 1, 2 championships at UConn. You know, defensive rim protector, probably could they consider the best rim protector in this draft. So what is your overall thoughts on Clingan?
Yeah, I mean, I feel like, you know, he's had a role the past 2 seasons, and he's excelled extremely well. He's produced, like you said. One thing you know you're going to get at Clingan is that he's going to protect the rim. And I think there's no real debate. He is the best rim protector, and that's something that Hawks can add. I mean, to me, it's that simple. He's probably one of the better screeners in this class, and he's going to be one of the better rebounders, and he's going to be one of the better defenders. I mean, I get that people are looking at how Boston is running 5 out. Like you said, you have Porzingis doing these things, you know, on the perimeter. At the end of the day, I truly believe that having someone that executes their role is valuable. In Clingan's case, his role has been setting good screens and protecting the paint. When he focuses on that role and he, you know, is put in that position, again, he's helping his team win national championships. So again, we're not projecting. We're not looking for anything. It's right there in our face. You know, we see his exact role. And I just think when you have that number 1 pick, that's something you have to seriously consider. Okay, what do we know this guy's going to be? Mm-hmm. What do we know he's going to be? And like I said, looking at his tape, looking at him play, you know, even going back to his high school, you know, people don't understand that, you know, Clingan won Connecticut Player of the Year his junior and his senior season. You know, he finished his senior season averaging 30 points, 18 rebounds, and 6 blocks. You know, So he has 2 magical years in high school. Then he has 2 magical years in college. And we're like, oh, like he's big, he's slow. It's like, it doesn't matter. Clingan's going to do what he has to do. And that's something I value. He's coming from that pedigree. Like, I mean, we all know he's won the 2 championships. Mm-hmm. And I think when you add all these things up, that's extremely valuable to a team like Atlanta that's just trying to get back in the playoffs, man. Like, you know, I think when people see Sarr, they're thinking instant that Sarr can be, or not even necessarily the Hawks, but a lot of people around the league, they think that he can maybe one day be one of the better players. Is that because of Porzingis? Is that because of Wemby? But I just hope people can understand the expectations and the projections they're putting on Alex Sarr. But then when they look at Clingan, they're projecting him to be at worst a Rudy Gobert. And to me, I think that's more likely. Mm-hmm. I think he has one of the more likely comps. So we can confidently say, okay, he's going to be Rudy Gobert maybe he'll be a taller Clint Capella. And Bryce, if you tell me he's going to be one of those two players, that's a valuable pick for the Hawks. That's not a bad pick. Now, when you look at Sarr, who are we hearing? Wemby. Extremes where it's
I've
like,
heard Evan Mobley too. I don't know if that's a good comp.
No, Evan Mobley. But to me, I think it's a good comp. I don't think it's necessarily a lazy comp, but at USC, we've seen Mobley do it. We've seen him stretch the floor consistently. We've seen him shoot. And that's what, that's how he worked into, that top 3 pick. Sarr, I just don't think he's done enough to justify being one of the top picks, especially when you start looking at Clingan, when you start looking at Edey. You start looking at the other bigs they've produced. So again, that's the big thing that jumps out with me again when I look at Clingan. He's produced. We know exactly what type of role he's going to bring to any team. Hawks, Houston, who knows? Maybe even San Antonio might shock the world. That's probably unlikely, but who knows?
Yeah.
So again, if you can't tell, Bryce, I'm trying to get Clean Kong, man.
Yes, sir, Clean Kong. Yeah.
I'm trying to get Clean Kong, man.
I'm dead. Oh man. Some people will be like, man, we're gonna rely on the UConn man to save the franchise, huh? Right. But I've kind of been like, for me, I've said I prefer Sarr, but like at the same time, I'm not gonna be mad if we got Clingan. I'm not gonna be like, why did we draft? Like, I get it. Like both of them kind of feel a need for the team, so it's like I'm not gonna be mad. At the end of the day, still got to go through the coaching. Luckily, Quinn has a staff that helped players from last year's team improve. Like they have a track record of improving players. So like I have no reason not to believe that he can't improve when he gets here as the season progresses, training camp goes along. I'm sure they're gonna have goals for him, everything under the sun. I think obviously your biggest things with him maybe are like condition. Obviously, I think they said that he's never played over 25 minutes in a game. So I think obviously I don't know if that's 100% true, but basically, could they say conditioning is a problem? Because obviously you're 7'2", 280. That you're not going to be like 35 minutes easy. Like you're going to have to put in a lot of work to be able to be conditioned that way. And I think that's why I think if you go with Clingan, it also I think makes guys like Onyeka Okongwu more valuable. Because like you're gonna, if you have to play that the other guy a lot of minutes because just Clingan can't go that long, you at least can say like, okay, I know Okongwu can play 20, 25, 30 minutes if needed.
That is true.
And so I think that's the thing. And it seems like people break up his foot. As far as I've heard, doctors ain't too worried about it. I mean, I always say this too. He played in the biggest games. He played in the like he wasn't missing big games. Like he was playing, so it's not that big of an issue.
Yeah, like he finished the season healthy. Like
exactly. So yeah, we got one vote on the panel for Clean Kong. Y'all let me know if y'all want Clean Kong in Atlanta. But now we gotta go into the last guy. I'm probably gonna butcher his first name. I don't know if it's Zaccharie or Zaccharie Risacher. Also, Frenchman guy, played overseas. That's interesting about this draft. We have 2 overseas guys, basically. I mean, Sarr is technically overseas, but he played overtime elite, so it just depends on where you want to categorize him. But Risacher is a guy who has been apparently he's been projected as a top pick for a minute. I saw something yesterday that said that he has been, especially I forgot the ESPN guy who's been leading their draft coverage, starts with a G, Jonathan something. They said apparently he had him like top 3 on his draft board while he was averaging 3 points a game last year. And I was just like, they said that's why people keep thinking they keep saying he's on the payroll because they said it man loves Risacher. And it's crazy because you keep seeing so many like that's the weirdest thing about this. You've heard momentum for Sarr, you've heard momentum for Clingan. I feel like you haven't heard a lot of momentum for Risacher, but if you look at a lot of mocks, they're putting Risacher with Atlanta. And so a lot of people are like, I think Risacher might be a Hawk tomorrow. I don't know, man. What do you think looking at Risacher? I think the big thing is the comparisons I've heard are Michael Porter Jr., which I mean that's not bad. That's not bad. Michael Porter Jr., he won a championship. He's done some good things with Denver Nuggets. No, that's not bad. He's a starter. But then I've also heard Tobias Harris, and let's be honest, that name, nobody wants to take the first pick and get Tobias Harris. Right. So I think that scared a little bit of people when they heard that. What are your overall thoughts on Risacher's game, man? They just think maybe at best he could be a high-end 3-and-D guy.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I see, a 3-and-D guy. I think that's what everybody sees. Like, that's kind of his floor. Good, solid on-ball defender, solid. He's probably actually a better off-ball defender. Just good defensive instinct. He got the burner. Last year at one point, he was shooting 50% from three. So, like, it was like a small sample size. So, again, he has the burner. He has a 3-and-D type of role sketched out for him. But another guy I just don't see as the number one pick, Rice. I'm sorry. Like, I understand that this class is weak.
A lot of people agree with you on that. That's
the waves, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, how do we go from Alex Sarr to Risacher? And because to me, I think Ron Holland's better than a lot of people that we've named. Ron Holland might be the best player in this class. So that was a guy that, we want to talk about the waves. He was at the top of the wave last year. He was the number one pick. So again, to see that Ron Holland was the number one prospect when he dropped out of high school, people projected him to be the number one pick. He went to the G League Ignite, averaged 20 points, 7 rebounds, a couple assists, and now people saying, well, he can't shoot, But Risacher, he scores 10 points, playing some random league, 10 points, not even an assist, not even a steal per game. Granted, and I think he finished out like this season shooting 35%. Again, I see the projection, but that's not, to me, I know you said I know we talk about Tobias Harris. That's not actually bad. That's probably not as bad as we think. It was just that contract. The timing and the contract, it makes us think, crazy Tobias. Plus, the playoff run. But who's the first comp?
Michael
Michael. That's also a solid comp. Again, someone that has a burner.
Hey, I'll say this, and this is, he might be watching this. And this is no offense, Matt. I was in a Hawks. What do they call that thing? Why am I blanking what they call the Twitter thing that you can go on to? Space, yes.
Yeah.
And man, we were talking about comp. We were just randomly shouting comps out. And man, Matt came back and said Brandon Miller. Somebody was like, Brandon Miller.
Brandon Miller.
I was like, I don't know about that one. I think Brandon Miller has a little bit more to his game. I don't know what you think about Brandon Miller, but
no, like, Brandon Miller might actually be about right. Like, if he could be Brandon Miller, again, someone that has a burner, like, I think that's the projection. I mean, and maybe they went to go see him. As soon as they wanted to pick, they went out and flew out. Even Corver pulled up to watch him play in France. And maybe they, if Corver can get in the lab with him and, improve his jump shot, maybe I can see why they have him as the first pick, because it's like, okay, he'll be a solid defender, but forget that. He'll be an elite shooter. Brandon Miller, Ray Allen. I mean, I want to call Michael Porter Jr. an elite shooter. Maybe if he had like an improved shot selection, probably a higher IQ offensively, he would be considered an elite shooter. Maybe I'm reaching right now with Michael Porter Jr. But again, if he can be that, okay, I can see him, being worthy of that top pick. And I can see people projecting it like, okay, he's playing next to Trae Young. You can kind of plug him in there right next to JJ. I can see that. And it was funny, the comp that I was going to say, like the mid-tier comp for me, it could be DeAndre Hunter. So it's like, all right, do we really want to add maybe another DeAndre Hunter? And to me, I think DeAndre Hunter is actually pretty underrated. But that's just something I would ask Hawks fans, or I would ask Matt in that Twitter space, like, would you want to add another DeAndre Hunter? And then, because I think like that's kind of where he's at,
Well, let me ask you this. I saw this idea, and I'm not opposed to it. I think, do you think his skills at all, Risacher's skills, kind of translate to a guard at all? Do you think there could be the possibility, or if you draft him, you could plug him at the 2 maybe? and he'll play. Do you think that could be good? Because I think one thing I thought about was when Trey had Bogey starting for him, that was a really good background, especially offensively, chemistry-wise, just because Bogey's a shooter. So, and obviously Trey with his passing, that worked great. That's the starting backcourt that got to these conference finals. There's been some success there. Do you think if Risacher, especially if he gets that 3-point shot, and then he's 6'8", playing 2, so you expect him to be a good defender. Obviously, he has to put weight on. That's his biggest thing. Skinny guy. But how do you feel about that? Maybe.
Yeah, and that's such a great question, man. Because I did a film breakdown on him on my channel about a month ago, and around that time, people were saying, "Oh, he's Jalen Johnson." I was hearing that. I'm like, "What? Why do people keep saying Jalen Johnson?" And then people were saying he would play the 4, and I'm like, "The 4? Like, he's clearly a tall shooting guard. Like, I think he's an inch or two, maybe a 1.5 inch taller than Klay Thompson. Is kind of how I saw him when I watched the tape. Like, nothing really. I didn't see really that he had to play the 3. I didn't see that I definitely didn't see you had to play the 4. Like, I definitely feel like 2 would be a good way to fully take advantage of him on your team. Like you see, he has the height. He should be kind of able to guard one of the wings he's going to be going against. And then playing next to a Trae Young, now you can throw another wing out there. You can throw another DeAndre Hunter, or even if he's not the 2, you can have Bogey and Risacher out there together, and maybe who knows, even put Dre at the 4. And you can have JJ at the 5. You can run those type of small ball lineups. Like, I can see how, big picture, he can be moved around. But I think he would probably be best as a shooting guard, especially for the Hawks.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I thought it was interesting. I said if that was what they were going to do, I'd be fine with the pick. But I also agree. He just doesn't give me number 1 vibes. But again, this is why people say what they say about this draft. It's just because there isn't that this is clearly the number 1 guy who's going to really make an impact when they come in. But out of the 3, I know a lot of people say Clingan is probably the most NBA ready guy out of the 3 of them, just based off because you know what he is, you know what he can do. There's some things he can improve, of course, like any other guy in this draft. But because I think this draft to me reminds me of a lot of players that just have a lot of potential. If they get to the right situation, get the right coaching, there's a lot of really good players, like Ron Holland, like you mentioned, the guy we mentioned before the show.
Mateus.
Yeah, Mateus, like he has a lot of potential. Other guys and things of that nature. So I know I think Cody Williams has been shooting up the ladder for guys. So I think that this draft has a lot of that here, and it's going to be interesting to see how it all plays out and how we view this draft in 3 years, and especially with the Hawks having this first pick. But now with that, I got to ask you, we've heard rumors of the Hawks potentially trading down, and then they're thinking, okay, if they trade down, Clingan's probably the target. But we've also heard rumors Houston may want to get Clingan. We've heard, these like, oh, that may not even be a guarantee. And if you're Atlanta, you trade down and you don't get any of the top 3, now you're like, all right, well, we got to go to our next guys. And okay, who do we want? And I don't know if you want to risk that if you're Landry Fields. What he talked about in 92.9 the game, it sounds like he's still planning to stay at 1. So do you see the Hawks trading down? Do you think there is a feasible way or a feasible route right now? And then also, do you think we could get shocked? Is there a dark horse player that could maybe be under consideration for them?
Yeah, I mean, I'm trolling right here, but I had to say it, maybe Reed Shepherd. I mean, I know we brought him in.
Oh, brother.
No, but
it's funny. I was in UK in Lexington with Reed Shepherd. I know Reed Shepherd can hoop. But I know at the same time people are like, Reed Shepherd.
Right.
You draft him, then we gotta trade DeJounte. There's just no way you can keep him.
Yeah, we traded that same night, but no, I mean, if I'm the Hawks GM, if I'm Landry Fields, I think that's the best way you can get the most value out of this pick is by trading it. I get you can do your homework, but if you can move back, I think that would be the priority. So there's no guarantees, there's no guarantees. So that's just what I will want to do. I think the Hawks will want to do that. But again, and I think that's the most logical thing to do. Again, you look at our draft capital the next couple seasons. We only got a first round pick for 3 seasons. We're not really in a position to tank. So if you can, trade this pick, let's say we trade it back 1 to Washington. So we get the second pick. Maybe they give us the 26th pick, for us to move up, and I guess in this case, for us to move back 1 spot. I would entertain that, So I know a lot of people were saying 4 and 8 for number 1. I don't think that adds up. I think that's a great trade for the Hawks and a bad trade for the Spurs. So again, like just looking at because like you said, you kind of, if you're going to trade back in a hypothetical, I think a lot of us are saying, okay, you got to still pick top 4, So I think it makes the most sense again logically, but I don't think that it's guaranteed because I think the biggest domino was Alex Sarr. We lost that leverage over these past 48 hours. Like we just completely just say, you know what, who cares? And now teams are gonna lowball us for that first pick. Then you got to think Landry Fields is a new GM, so he's gonna get lowball. We're probably gonna get the best value. So I think we're gonna end up picking first. I think the surprise pick is gonna be Donovan Clingan. I think people still they're not there yet. They're not there that this could be a possibility, especially like you said with Risacher jumping on so many people's mocks. Like I'm talking about at 1. It's like, wow. It's like we the only team that won. I can see the Spurs won them at 4, but the Hawks at 1. My God. And to me, that could be a shocker. And just overall, I don't know if the Hawks would do this necessarily. I'm not even sure if we brought him in for a workout, honestly. But Ron Holland will be like the guy that I think is he's either going to be the biggest shock or he's going to drop. And when we're going to look back, we're going to be like, bro, how did he fall? Same thing with Mateus potentially. We're talking about 2 guys that went to the G League. They went to the G League Ignite. That's a development club. They're not there to win. They're there to literally just get better at basketball. It doesn't matter if they win 1 game. It looks like they finished the seasons pretty good, and they were just playing against other pros. They were playing in the NBA system, and I think those are just 2 guys that, I think the Alex Sarrs and the Zaccharie Risachers of the world should have been replaced with these G League guys, especially when you look at the history. I mean, Jalen Green just came out. We just saw, maybe people are scared off because of, dang, I can't think of the guard for the Portland. That was with the G League last year.
Was it Scoot?
Yeah, Scoot. Yeah, these guys were top 3 picks, Bryce, and Ron Holland scored more points per game than both players. Now, if you tell me that Ron Holland could be better than Jalen Green, I'll take that. I'll definitely take that for the Hawks. You plug that in next to Trae Young, you plug that in and allow him just to be that off-ball guy. The same thing we're going to ask for anybody else we'll draft. We're going to ask him to play defense. We're going to ask him to run in transition. Like, I think Ron Holland is a guy that maybe the Hawks won't draft at 1, but I think he's going to be like, that's just my dark horse rookie of the year. Maybe not even my dark horse, but I'm just throwing it out here now. I think that would be the surprise, is how good Ron Holland is in the NBA.
Yeah, I know. Listen, I remember when people thought the Hawks were going to get 10. That was a range I think some people wondered if Holland would go to. And I remember seeing a lot of people in the Hawks circles saying like, "Oh, I really like Ron. Like he's a guy I would love to take there." So it's interesting, for you to say that you're high on him. Like I like, for the most part, it's like there's just guys that like a lot of people are high on, but like at the same time just don't see that high in the draft where the Hawks are. So it'll be interesting, like you said, to see how they go compared to what happens with 3 top guys in this draft. But now I just want to ask you one last thing, man, before I let you go. Obviously, this is kind of switching away, or this could potentially impact the draft. You never know. So it was a rumor, I believe they said it came from the Marq Chaney pod, that Brandon Ingram could be traded as soon as this week. That is a guy who has been connected to Atlanta a lot. A lot of people talked about a DJ Ingram swap. Obviously, that wouldn't be the only players in the trade, but those are the 2 main guys. I I wanted to get your thoughts on what do you think about if the Hawks wanted to make a move like that. And do you think, hey, Hawks could maybe make a move tomorrow night during the draft regarding that? I mean, is that because free agency is next week, so could happen next week too. But just what are your thoughts on that entire Brandon Ingram situation to Atlanta since he's been connected a lot?
Yeah, that would be a good pickup for us, man. To just add a proven player, I think that's what we need. Especially we're serious about getting back into the playoffs. A rookie's not going to be the difference, y'all. I mean, not in this class. It's just unfortunate. And I mean, I could be wrong. There's times these guys get drafted from 1st to 15th. They show up in the summer league, and we're like, whoa, like this guy's gotten better. And maybe with the NBA spacing, we didn't realize how good he'd be. So that's possible, but still, with the Hawks, we know that it's going to be a ball. Trae Young is going to be a high usage ball handler. He's going to be determining how far we go. So the best thing you can do is add to that by getting a proven guy, not these projected players. Get a proven guy, someone like Brandon Ingram. He's going to give you 20 points in his sleep. That his IQ and his production on offensive side is going to be there. That's the type of addition I think we should really be focused on. I think that's when our offseason starts. And hopefully it can be tomorrow. Maybe we move the pick and Capella and we do something funky and we end up getting, one of these players, Paul George in a signing trade, or OG or Brandon Ingram. But again, whether it's Brandon Ingram or whether it's some player we don't even know, I think that's something that we should really be looking for, because the Hawks have been real quiet, but we all know. They know that you got to go out there and add proven guys. We don't have any more draft picks in the next couple seasons. Like, this is the time to be aggressive and try to make that push. But again, Clingan, Sarr, Risacher, none of these guys are going to be the difference. They're not. So if you can go get a BI, I'm not saying trade a first round pick for BI, but maybe I know a lot of people are saying if we get BI, it's going to take one or two guys, and it's going to be either Trae Young or DeJounte Murray. I mean, that's the one thing I've heard. Maybe we can move Dre. Maybe we can do just some savvy trade. But again, Landry Fields is a young GM. He's most likely going to get finessed. Not necessarily finessed, but he's most likely going to have to overpay for anything he does. Even if he wants to move back to number 2, he's going to have to he might have to take the second pick and a second round pick. Like, I just think that's the reality. He's such a young GM. And if he can find a creative way to get BI and it costs us Trae Young, I'd honestly, if we can keep the first pick, get rid of some money. Is BI a free agent too?
No, he has a year left. I think he has a year left, but I don't think the Pelicans want to give him the max extension, which would be like $50 million a year, because pretty much everybody's been like, I don't think BI is worth 50. So I think that would obviously have to be a question that you'd have to ask yourself. I mean, obviously they have his rights, so they can pay him more. I don't know how much it would be if another team gave him an extension, but
yeah, well, no, he should get the most from New Orleans, and then they can move him. But then, like you said, he has one more year remaining, so we haven't gotten there yet. But still, I again, even with the idea of having to pay BI, I know this is a whole different rabbit hole. We don't have to go here at all, Bryce, but I'm at least say it, 'cause I've been saying it a lot. If you can get rid of Trae Young now and get some good value for him, I'd seriously entertain it, man. I think this is the time to move Trae Young potentially. You look at him, he's going to be making $43 million this season. He's making 29% of the salary cap. And if you can move him, maybe get some picks, move him, get a role player. I know Hawks fans don't want to hear it. You may not want to hear it either, Bryce, but I just think that's the direction we should consider. That's all I'm saying. That's a serious option for us. And maybe you don't get a BI, you don't get one of these top scorers in return, but I think you'll get a better overall flow and a better direction if you can, replace the undersized point guard and Trae Young, slide Murray back into his natural position, let JJ handle the ball more in open space and let him create, and that first round pick. I just think that's a good direction to go in, especially. And I didn't even consider anybody that we would have got back for Trae. So, like I said, Trey, if you see this, I'm sorry. I'm just doing my job. I'm just saying the good and I'm just saying the bad, man. But
I'm dead. He said, DJ face of the franchise.
Right.
Oh man, yeah. I mean, listen, you might. Hey, this is at the end of the video. If people make it to the end of the video, man, they might get riled up. They might not. Some people might agree with you, man. It's very, very split, man. But we'll have to see what happens, because, like I said, there's still some moves to be made this offseason for the Hawks. So we're gonna have to see what this turns into, man. There's a lot going on. But I appreciate you, man, coming on to the show, man. Really helping just talk about big day coming up, big night for the Hawks, man. Timeline about to be in shambles. Everything under the sun. Can't wait, man.
Right. Hey, in about 24 hours, man, nothing will be the same. Nothing will be the same.
Yep, man. Let people know where they can find you, Marq.
Yeah. Hey, well, Bryce, first and foremost, appreciate you having me. This is definitely a great time. You all can find me at Marq Chaney. You can follow me on Instagram, Twitter, wherever you want to look. You can just search Marq Chaney. And you can also follow me on Bleacher Report. I actually had a live stream this morning. We talked about the Hawks, talked about some of the top targets for us. So, there's a couple places you can find me, but like I said, I'm sure y'all y'all see me back here, sometime soon.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Like I said, man, I appreciate you coming on for show. And obviously, y'all know, follow me on Twitter, Bryce_2K. You can find my YouTube under that too, or Believe in Hawks as well. Subscribe to the channel for show. We're on the road to 1,000. We're at 900 for our last time I checked. So trying to get there. Definitely don't forget to like. And also, if you listen through audio as well, leave a rating and leave a review on the pod too. Appreciate all the love and support for you guys. And when the pick is made tomorrow, I will be right back here giving my analysis on that. And we'll talk about the fallout from that as well. And like I said, you may see Marq back on here in the near future as well, man. But I appreciate you. That's Marq. I'm Bryce. We'll see you next time.